Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. We are from Group 9, Design and Organizational Behavior Q class. We will presentation about work teams and organization culture. This is the member of Group 9. There was Dendi, number 8, Radina, number 23, Andika, number 29, Tasya Sifa, number 32, Radini Vindy, number 39, 36, and Irena, number 72. This is work team. The first is why have teams become so popular? Because mostly people believe that teams is effective. Teams can sometimes achieve feats an individual could never accomplish. Teams are more flexible and responsive to changing events than traditional department or other forms of permanent groupings. Our involvement in teams positively shapes the way we think as individuals, introducing a collaborative mindset about even our personal decision making. Okay, this is the differences between groups and teams. We start from the definition. Work groups is a group that interact primarily to share information and make decisions to help each member perform within his or her area of responsibility. Uh, the work team is a group whose individually efforts results in performance that is greater than the sum of the individual inputs. So work groups have no need opportunity to engage in collective work in joint effort. So the group's performance is just individual contribution of each of member. There is no positive synergy that would create in work groups. While work teams generally positive synergy through the coordination about the member of the work team. But also from that, work group and the work team have a similarity. That was there are often behavioral expectation of members, collective normalization efforts, active group dynamics, and some level of decision making. And then both may generate the ideas, pull resources, or coordinate logistics such as work schedule.
The next is types of team. The first is problem-solving teams. Employees from the same department who meet for a few hours each week to discuss ways of improving quality, efficiency, and the work environment. The second is self-managed work teams. Self-managed work teams are groups of employees, typically 10 to 15 in numbers, who perform highly related or interdependent jobs. These teams take on some supervisory responsibilities. Next. The third is cross-functional team. Employees from above the same hierarchical level, but from different work areas, who come together to accomplish a task. The fourth is virtual teams, teams that use computer technology to together physically dispersed members in order to achieve a common goal. The last is multi-team systems, collection of two or more interdependent teams that share a superordinate goal. In other words, multi-team systems are a team of teams. Next. The next is creating effective teams. We can organize the key component of effective teams into three general categories. First are the resources and other contextual influences that makes team effective. The second relates to the team's composition. Finally, process variables are even within the team that influence effectiveness. We will explore each of these components next. Next.
So now how organization can create team players. First, we must selecting hiring team players. Be sure candidates can fulfill their team roles, hire the best talent, personal traits appear to make some people better candidates, and then training. We must creating team players, allow employees to experience the satisfaction teamwork, workshop help employees improve their skills, make a real dynamic group, and then last, rewarding by providing incentives to be a good team player. There are individual and team incentives depending on the company. Set a cooperative tone as soon as possible in the life of a team. Individual contribution should be ignored. It should be balanced with selfless contribution to the team. And then don't forget the intrinsic reward such as camaraderie. And when to use individuals instead of teams, we must thinking about these three questions. First, can the work be done better by more than one person? So look at the complexity of the work and the need for different perspective. Simple tasks probably are better left to individuals. And then does the work create a common purpose for the people in the group? Teams better manage collective responsibility for ensuring customer needs are properly met. And then determine whether the members of the group are interdependent. Using teams makes sense when there is interdependence among tasks. The success of the whole depends on the success of each one, and the success of each one depends on the success of the others.
The next is organizational culture. Next. The first is common characteristic of organizational culture. Next. Definition. And the first, we will explain about organizational culture. Organizational culture refers to a system of shared meaning held by members that distinguish the organization from other organizations. 7 primary characteristics seems to capture the essence of an organization's culture. The first is innovation and risk-taking, the degree to which employees are encouraged to be innovative and take risks. And then the second is attention to detail, the degree to which employees are expected to exhibit precision, analysis, and attention to detail. The third is outcome orientation, the degree to which management focus on result or outcomes rather than on the technique or process used to achieve them. Four is people orientation, the degree to which management decision take into consideration the effect of outcomes on people within the organization. The five is team orientation, the degree to which work activities are organized. The six is aggressiveness, the degree to which people are aggressive and competitive rather than easygoing. Seven is stability, the degree to which organizational activities emphasize maintaining the status quo in contrast to growth. Next. And then there is a culture as a descriptive theme. Organizational culture show how employees perceive the characteristic of an organization, not whether they like them or not. That is its descriptive term. Research on organizational culture has sought to measure how employees see their organization. Does it encourage teamwork? Does it reward innovation? Does it stifle initiative? In contrast, job satisfaction seeks to measure how employees feel about the organization expectation, reward practice, and the like. Next. And the next question is, do organizations have uniform? The dominant culture express the core value a majority of members share and that give the organization its distinct personality. Subculture tend to develop in large organizations in response to common problem or experience a group of members face in the same department or location. Most large organizations have a dominant culture and numerous subculture. If organization were composed only of subculture, the dominant organizational culture will be significantly less powerful. The example is about strong versus weak culture. If most employees have the same opinion about the organization mission and value, the culture is strong. But if opinions vary widely, the culture is weak. In a strong culture, the organization core value are both intensely held and widely shared. The more members who accept the core value and the greater their commitment, the stronger the culture and the greater its influence on member behavior. The reason that a high degree of shared value and intensity create a climate of high behavioral control. A strong culture should reduce employee turnover because it demonstrates high agreement about what the organization represents. Next. And then the second is about culture versus formalization. Formalization and culture is a different road to a common destination. The stronger of organizational culture, the less management need to be concerned with developing formal rules and regulation to guide employee behavior. But these guides will be internalized in employees when they adopt the organizational culture. Next. There is a function of culture, but the first is culture define the rules of the game. The culture, it has a boundary defining role. It creates distinction between organization. And the second, it conveys a sense of identity for organization members. Third, culture facilitates commitment to something larger than individual self-interest. Fourth, it enhances the stability of the social system. Culture is the social glue that helps hold the organization together by providing standard for what employees should say and do. Finally, it's a sense-making and control mechanism that guides and shapes employees' attitude and behavior. This last function is a particular interest to us. Next. And the culture can create climates. Organizational climate refers to shared perception organizational members have about their organization and work environment. This aspect of culture is like team spirit at the organizational level. When everyone has the same general feeling about what important or how well things are working, the effect of this attitude will be more than the sum of the individual parts. If you have work with someone whose positive attitude inspires you to do your best, or with a lackluster team that drain your motivation, you've experienced about the culture creates climate. Next. The ethical dimension of culture. It's about this functional culture, organizational culture of the nine identified ECT climate categories. Five are most prevalent in organization. That is instrumental, caring, independence, love, and code and roles. Each explain the general mindset, expectation, and value for the manager. Such as instrumental ethical climate, managers may frame their decision making around the assumption that employees and company are motivated by self-interest. In a caring climate, conversely, managers may operate under the expectation that their decision will positively affect the greatest number of stakeholders. Next. And then the studies of ethical climates and workplace outcomes suggest that some ECT climate categories are likely to be found in certain organizations. Industry with exacting standards such as engineering, accounting, and law tend to have a rules or law or code climate. Industry that thrive on competitiveness such as financial trading often have an instrumental climate. Industry with mission of benevolence are likely to have a caring climate even if they are for profit as in an environmental protection firm. And then there is a culture as sustainability. Sustainability refers to practice that can be maintained over very long periods of time because the tools or structure that support the practice are not damaged by the process. Concept of sustainable management have their origin in the environmental movement, so processes that are in harmony with the natural environment are encouraged. Social sustainability practice address the way social systems are affected by an organization action over time, and in turn how change social system may affect the organization. Next. Next, nah. Then there is culture and innovation. The most innovative companies are often characteristic by their open, unconventional, collaborative, vision-driven, accelerating culture. Such as startup firms often have innovation culture by definition because they are usually small, agile, and focused on solving problems in order to survive and grow. Next. But culture can also be an asset. The most innovative companies are often characteristic by their open, unconventional, collaborative, vision-driven, accelerating culture. Such as I mentioned before, startup firms often have innovative culture by definition because they are usually small, agile, and focused on solving problems in order to survive and grow. Consider digital music leader Econes recently booked by Spotify. As a startup, the organization was unconventional, flexible, and open, hosting music app hack days for user and fostering a music culture. Next. But culture can be as a dysfunctional for this organization and the member. So culture can be a liability. The first is institutionalization. The second is barrier to change. The third is barrier to diversity. The fourth is strengthening dysfunction. And the last is barrier to acquisition and merger.
This section is about the factor that create and sustain an organization culture. How a culture begins. First, founder hire and keep only employees who think and feel the same way they do. Second, they indoctrinate and socialize employees to their way of thinking and feeling. Third, The founder own behavior encourage employees to identify with them and internalize their belief, values, and assumptions. Next is about keeping a culture alive. First selection, next top management and socialization. The socialization as a process with three stages. First is pre-arrival stage, second encounter stage, and metamorphosis stage. Next. This is about how organizational culture formed. The original culture derived from the founder philosophy and strongly influenced hiring criteria as the firm grows. The success of socialization depends on the deliberateness of matching new employees' value to those of the organization in the selection process and on top management commitment to socialization programs. Top management Top manager action set the general climate, including what is acceptable behavior and what is not, and employees sustain and perpetuate the culture. Next. In the section is about how culture is transmitted to employees. The most position being are stories, ritual, symbol, and language. Next.
Next is military and difference in creating an ethical culture, a positive culture, and a spiritual culture. The culture of organization is set by its founder and often difficult to afterward. It's true that ideal scenario is a strong founder or founders who carefully plans the organization's culture beforehand. That's seldom the case though. Organizational culture usually grows organically over time when we think of development of culture as ongoing and conducted through each employee. We can see ways to increase the ethical, positive, and or spiritual aspect of the environment. Next. The next is an ethical culture. Ethical organizational culture shares some common value and process. Therefore, manager can create a more ethical culture by adhering to the following principles. The first example, visible role model. Second, communicate ethical expectation. Third, provide ethical training. Fourth, visibly reward ethical acts and punish unethical ones. And the fifth is provide protective mechanism. Always spread positive ethical climate has to start at the top of the organization. When the top management emphasizes strong ethical values, supervisors are more likely to practice ethical leadership. Positive attitude transfer down to line employee who show lower level of defiant behavior and higher level of cooperation and assistance. Next. The next is a positive culture. Positive organizational culture is a culture that emphasizes building an employee strength, reward more than punishes, and emphasizes individual vitality and growth. The example one is building an employee strength. The second, rewarding more than punishing. The third is encouraging vitality and growth. The fourth is limit of positive culture. Not all organizational culture value being positive. There surely are limit to how far organization should go. The limits may need to be dictated by the industry and society. Next. And the next is a spiritual culture. What is spirituality? The workplace spirituality is not about organized religious practice, and it's not about God or theology. Workplace spirituality recognizes that people have an inner life that nourishes and is nourished by meaningful work in context of community. The myth of rationality assumes the well-run organization eliminate people feelings. The characteristic of a spiritual organization, the one is benevolence, the second is strong sense of purpose. The third is trust and respect. The fourth is open-mindedness, and the fifth is achieving spirituality in the organization. Why spirituality now? The concern of an employee's inner life had no role in perspective rational model, but just as we realized that the study of emotion improve our understanding of UOP and awareness of spirituality can help us better understand employee behavior. And the criticism of spirituality is in movement in organization have focused on three issues. The first one is there is comparatively little research on workplace spirituality. The second is emphasis superiority can clearly make someone employees uneasy. The third is whether spirituality and profit are compatible. Objective is a relevant concern for managers and investors in business. The evidence of limited indicates they are. The national culture can affect the way organizational culture is transported back to another country. Organizational culture reflects national culture is so powerful that it's of transcend national boundaries. But that doesn't mean organizations sold or called ignore local culture. The management of ethical behavior is one area where national culture can rub against corporate culture. Creating a multinational organizational culture can initiate strife between employees of traditional organizations and employees of corporate culture. The national culture employee performance and satisfaction, which the national culture can affect the way organizational culture is transported to another country. Organizational culture often reflects national culture is so powerful that it often transcends national boundaries, but that doesn't mean organizations should or could ignore local culture. The management of ethical behavior is one area where national culture can rub against corporate culture. Creating a multinational organizational culture can initiate strife between employees of traditionally competing countries. As national organizations seek to employ workers in overseas operations, management must decide whether to standardize many facets of organizational culture. For example, should organizations offer wellness plan and work-life balance initiative from the home country to the satellite office, or tailor the plan for the norms of its society? Either can be problematic. The impact of organizational culture employee form an overall subjective perception of the organization based on factors such as the degree tolerance, team emphasis, and support individuals. This overall perception represents, in effect, the organizational culture or personality and affect employee performance and satisfaction, with stronger cultures having greater impact. Next, the impact of organization culture employee for an overall subjective perception of the organization based on factors such as the degree of risk tolerance, team emphasis, and support of individuals. This overall perception represents in effect of organizational culture or personality and affect employee performance and satisfaction, with stronger cultures having greater impact. Next.
So this is our study case. Partai Demokrat split into Muldoko and high class begins. What? Partai Demokrat Delhi Serdang Extraordinary Congress version appointed Muldoko as general chairman of the Partai Demokrat in 2021. However, the general chairman of the Partai Demokrat in 2022, Agus Harimurti Yudhoyono, considered that decision is illegal because it was not based on the Partai Demokrat's ADART, which is approved, supported, attended by 2 of 3 total regional leadership council and half of the number of branch leadership council, and also the approval of the highest council. The statement was denied by Johnny Allen Marbun, as chairman of the 2021 Extraordinary Congress session, that Muldoko's election was following the ADART and had met the quorum. Partai Demokrat was split into, and a clash between the two general chairmen was inevitable. And where the allocation of the Extraordinary Congress was in Sipulangit, Deli Serdang, Regency, North Sumatra. Next, Radini will read this study case. So how this Party Democrat case is an example of an internal conflict case in the organization. Several cadres of this organization were dissatisfied with being under the leadership of AHY because they considered this partai keluarga. The culture in the organization is the root of the problem, which supports several members who agreed with the new Partai Demokrat led by Muldoko. During the last press conference, Muldoko was nowhere to be seen. Apart from political tactics, his attitude as chairman of the new Partai Demokrat was unprofessional because it seemed to avoid the press and sparking to that he only concerned on his personal interests. So that's our presentation, and thank you.